Hello world, it's Berto Prey 5 Cuplaw. Welcome to my review and reaction of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 5, Imposters. Looks like this one's going to be a doozy. So the episode opens with a calm and quiet bridge. We see the kind of background characters of the bridge, people whose names we didn't know, although Sydney LaForge is there, and she's yawning. It's late. There doesn't appear to be any captain, anybody in charge. It's just supposed to be like everything, that the danger is over. There's some exposition that they're going to be home soon. Systems are back online. They start talking about like thrusters, and I'm thinking the thrusters, this should have been online before they warped away. All these systems would have had to have been working, but whatever. It's just like things have calmed down. Everybody's guard is down. And then the turbo lift door opens. You don't immediately see who it is. And then, holy shit, they start shooting and killing everyone on the bridge. And obviously, you're like, okay, well, this is a dream, because there's no way they killed off Geordi's daughter. Not like this. The rest of the people, I wasn't 100% sure. But I was pretty sure. I was like, okay, this is a dream. And it turns out that it's I don't know if it's a daydream or what, but Jack Crusher, it turns out to be the mysterious person who starts shooting everybody. And then he kills, or he's about to kill, one of the women he shot is like crawling on the floor, and she looks up at him and she's like, I know what you really are. And we start to see that red vine mesh start flashing in over his face, over her face. And sure enough, it all fades away, and Jack is actually in his quarters, but he's holding a phaser. And he's like, looks at himself in disgust, like, oh my God, was I really about to do that? And then his eyes glow red. Like, I don't know. To me, it almost looked like he was an android. I was like, was that like, because his eyes, even though they were red, or Data's were yellow, it gave me those vibes. First scene, complete tease, but I kind of didn't mind seeing him kill the whole bridge crew. I thought, series is over. No. It goes on. So when Jack is in his quarters, he realizes what's going on. He drops the phaser, and you also hear Beverly's voice, and she's saying, Jack, come home. And then we get the opening credits. So now we get the real opening, where Riker is doing a acting captain's log. The ship is now just stopped in space. Last we saw it, it was warping away at, whatever warp speed, presumably as fast as they could possibly go. It looked like everything was fine. They had full power. Everything was A-okay. For some reason now they decided they had to stop and pull over, and now they're fixing the ship. Like what magically all got fixed at the end of last episode, now all has to be taken care of again. So they decided to pause at what they claim is the edge of the Alpha Quadrant. And my problem here is the edge of the Alpha Quadrant, that's where Earth is. Earth isn't in the Alpha Quadrant. Earth is the edge of the Alpha Quadrant. The line that separates the Alpha and Beta quadrants goes through Earth. So they're already home. I mean, granted, yeah, you could be closer to the center of the galaxy or closer to the edge of the galaxy, but for the most part, you're home already. The edge of the Alpha Quadrant is Earth. I don't think the person writing this understood that. I think they think Earth is in the middle of the Alpha Quadrant. No, Earth is the edge of the Alpha Quadrant. But it gets worse. it gets worse, because then we go right into a scene where Riker says in his log that we're here to fix the warp core, which was working perfectly fine last episode, but whatever. Now we can work on more pressing matters. And we get this scene with Riker, Picard, Shaw, and Seven, the four of them alone, discussing the Changeling issue, and like, how could a Changeling ever make it on board? And Seven's like, well, ever since the Dominion War, it's protocol that everybody goes through an internal body sweep to make sure they're not a Changeling. And Picard, I believe, says, well, Changelings can, assume human form, but they can't assume, human organs. If you scan a Changeling, you're going to see he's a Changeling. And no, that's the exact opposite. That is the exact opposite. Okay? Odo himself said, if you scan me, if I'm a rock, I scan as a rock. If I'm a person, you scan as a person. If it was as easy as that to detect a Changeling, the whole fucking DS9's greatest episodes would all be bullshit. Okay? It ruins canon. It destroys Deep Space Nine canon, the best canon. How is it that you can say this is great Star Trek if they make the greatest of all Treks before, minus perhaps the original series, look like idiots? Like, oh shit, the entire Dominion War, nobody decided to just fucking scan for shapeshifters. Okay? They had to go through drills of using phasers to phase down hallways and shit, and blood tests and all this other stuff. Well, we could have just scanned for an internal organ. Oh, he doesn't have lungs? Well, then he's a shapeshifter. That's not how it fucking works. Okay? That's not how it fucking works. I don't care. I don't care how good the spaceships look. I don't care that Picard is maybe acting more like Picard. Okay? I don't care that Seven is in it and she looks good, and Worf is back and he's kicking ass. I don't care any of this if you can't get your fucking basic Changeling history correct. And this is angering me so fucking much. I've started ranting before I even watched more of the episode. I had to get it out because an hour from now is not going to feel as raw. There's no fucking excuse for this. I'm going to try to watch the rest of this and come back to the review. And this is just 4 minutes in. And you know what? Riker also is worried about, he's saying there's no sign of Vadic or the Shrike. If you're worried about Vadic or the Shrike, you should have blew them up when you had the fucking chance. In fact, it's Riker who says it. He says, as he recalls, Changelings can mimic most species on sight alone, but certainly they're not their internal physiology. Wrong. For whatever reason, they can mimic their internal physiology. And it's every species. There's no species they can't fucking mimic. What species could they not mimic? They can be fucking fire and fog. They can be air. They can be walls. They can be anything they fucking want. They can be warp-capable ships. Maybe it's overpowered. I'll grant you that. But that's already what they are. That's the reason that shapeshifters are so fucking dangerous. Seven says every crew member passes through an internal imaging chamber. It's standard protocol since the Dominion War. Verifies they're not a shapeshifter. Fucking, all they needed was a fucking MRI machine. I'm sure they have portable MRI machines in the 25th fucking century. That's all they need. Stupid Benjamin Sisko and those idiots cutting their hands and scanning with fucking phasers to keep the shapeshifters out. All you needed to do was an internal imaging scan. Oh, you're a shapeshifter because your inside is made of goo. So apparently, other than the shapeshifter, which you would think would be the biggest deal, they also have to discuss the commandeering of the ship and the fact that they've got to face the music. Riker gives the command control back to Captain Shaw, and so he graciously accepts, and he says, by the way, I've already contacted Starfleet. They're on their way. He tells Seven, hey, do you want to face the music? Because Picard says, time to face the music. Go home and face the music. So he asks Seven, do you want us to face the music stated or reinstated or stated? And she's like, yeah, I'd rather be reinstated. And so he does like he's knighting her, and he's like, okay, you're reinstated by magic. And he says, as a courtesy, he's going to leave the room and let the three of them get their quote unquote bullshit story straight. Shaw really steals the scene. Any scene he's in, I enjoy. It's not Star Trek. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not Star Trek, but he does steal the scene. Now, I'm a little concerned, like, they just went through all this stuff together, and Shaw just, first off, Shaw is completely healed. There doesn't seem to be any hint that he was deathly injured, I don't know, 6 hours ago, I'm guessing. I mean, it doesn't seem like they've been underway all that long. This is the first time they get to talk about the shapeshifter. I mean, maybe it's 2 hours. I have no idea. It's not days. So he didn't need days to recover. A couple hours, he's back to his old self. It feels like he would have progressed. His relationship would have changed after they had that time in the holodeck, and he seemed like he was working out some of his PTSD. I know it doesn't go away. It doesn't work like that. But in movies, it usually does. But Shaw seems back to his old dickish self, which I'm okay with. It just doesn't feel natural. So Picard reassures Seven and Riker that he'll bear the brunt of this. He'll take the fall. Everything's basically his fault anyway. Nobody tries to argue with him. Riker doesn't say that's going to be hard for you to take the fall when I'm the one who took command of the ship. You were retired. The fact that you were able to do anything really isn't your fault. It's everyone else's. Riker was the one who was the active duty Starfleet captain, but whatever, Picard's going to take the fall. For some reason, Beverly and Jack were hanging out outside. I mean, because they're not Starfleet, but when has that ever mattered? Beverly and Jack were hanging out outside the hallway, so Picard comes out and explains the situation to them. He's like, I'm going to handle this the best I can. Starfleet's on their way. And, Okay. So Picard is telling them that, listen, this is it. This is over. Everybody's going to go home. You can go back to your lives, and I just hope to be a part of it. And Beverly is like, listen, Jean-Luc, this isn't over by a long shot. She's like, somehow a changeling bypassed ship security systems, even though she wasn't in the room just, a few minutes ago. But obviously, the great Dr. Crusher must know everything everyone else knows, and knows, there's these security methods in place for stopping shapeshifters these days since the Dominion War, and how did they get past it? And then she wants permission to examine the shapeshifter's body. And Picard says, yeah, granted, you can do it. First off, Picard, you're not in charge. You just Captain Shaw's in charge. Beverly needs to ask him for permission, not you. But besides that, the elephant in the room, if we'll take a phrase from last episode, changelings don't leave fucking bodies. They don't have a fucking body. Okay? There shouldn't be a body. And this is what happened at the end of last episode when they killed the changeling. The changeling should have turned into ash like all the others, or goo, or whatever. Instead, for some reason, that one changeling, after being killed, held its shape and looked like LaForge, looked like Sidney LaForge. That's the first time in changeling history a dead changeling kept its body shape. And we knew something was wrong. I thought maybe this wasn't dead yet. No, so it was dead, but for the first fucking time, a dead changeling decided to keep the shape of the thing it was. How can they fuck up changelings so quick? We're 6 minutes and 48 seconds in. The first 2 minutes were like previously on. So I think we're less than fucking 4 minutes into this episode, and they've just threw out all the fucking changeling lore that we know. Ah! So Jack is asking Picard, because Beverly went off to examine the body that shouldn't even exist. So Jack is asking Picard if he should find a comfortable pair of restraints, like he's going to be arrested. Why would Jack be arrested? Jack didn't do anything wrong here. Picard is the one who did something wrong. Riker is the one who did something wrong. Jack and Beverly, they sent it was kind of weird for them to send a message directly to Picard himself, but I don't think that's illegal. So what would Starfleet have with arresting him? It doesn't make any sense. And so Picard says, I can be persuasive when I need to be. You don't worry about Starfleet. Let me worry about Starfleet. So Picard is telling Jack, says, many a rebel have from all across the galaxy have found their way to Starfleet. Maybe you'll choose to go to Starfleet. Starfleet's an organization. We take in all the rebels in the galaxy and turn them into proper Starfleet officers. So Jack is like, yeah, you haven't really been paying much attention, have you? You're a brilliant guy, but you don't understand the very basics. Like, once Starfleet's done with me, I'm on my way. I'm out of here. So now we switch back, and finally Worf is back, but unfortunately, that also means Raffi's back. And we get a scene of Worf and Raffi play fighting, exercising, whatever, testing their combat skills. Worf's got his sword, Raffi's got 2 sticks, and Raffi is far better a fighter than she should be, considering she's basically a crack addict. But Worf, I guess, just kind of doesn't let her win, but lets her get in a few decent hits, maybe trying to get up her confidence. But then once she starts talking smack, Worf just kind of doesn't knock her out. He headbutts her. She's on the ground. And then Worf is like, you can see he's fighting basically with one hand for like a few seconds. Like, you're not even close to my skills, which I'm honestly surprised they show us actually a man able to outfight a woman. I mean, this is, I guess, the refreshing part of Trek. We wouldn't have seen this in seasons 1 or 2, but in season 3, we finally get to see the fact that Worf, one of the greatest Klingon warriors of all time, the man who was able to slay Gowron, was able to fairly easily defeat Raffi. And then their fight session gets interrupted because of an incoming encrypted message from Starfleet intelligence. Which, again, kind of is like, why does all the computers announce Starfleet intelligence. Maybe you would have like a code word, or, you wouldn't announce that in case, let's say they had somebody on the ship and they didn't want them to know that they worked for Starfleet intelligence. It seems weird. So Raffi gives us some exposition that it's been 24 hours since Worf contacted his handler. And now it's been 24 hours, and who knows what these quote unquote goo freaks, changelings, are up to. They're already planning their next attack. So she's pissed it took 24 hours for Worf's handler to reach out to him. I guess that's just how Starfleet intelligence works. You have a handler, your handler has a handler, I guess they have a handler, and then at the top of the handlers, I suppose, is going to be the main bad guy, right? They're already there, so all this is really for nothing. It's just it's a joke and a guess. So we find out Worf's contact with his handler is the exact same female voice and text that Raffi was using when she was talking with Worf. So we have no idea who the handler actually is. And Worf is like, hey, I requested access to Daystrom Station so we could find out what else they stole. And then the handler comes up on the computer screen, requesting access to Daystrom Station, denied. And Raffi gets pissed now. She's like, no. She goes to keyboard. She types in Y, or she says Y. It comes up on the screen, and it says denied. And then the handler just says, find another way. So Raffi and Worf are annoyed, but Raffi's pissed. She's like, I'll break into Daystrom myself if I have to. And Worf is like, no, we're going to stand down. He's like, listen, if we're being told we can't break in, we can't get access to Daystrom, it's not only that my handler is saying not to do it, but obviously their superior is also saying we can't do it. And Raffi's like, but they're telling us to find another way. Why, if they still want us to pursue it, why not give us the access? And there's no real answer. Worf says, we're going to stand down. Raffi's like, no. I've sacrificed so much. If you sacrificed half as much as I have. And then Worf gets pissed and he throws his knife and it sticks in the metal floor of the ship. And Raffi's like, can you stop making holes in my ship every time you have to make a point? Which was a little funny, but a little out of character for Worf, who is practicing his meditation techniques to being a calmer, less angry soul. You can see this. The accusing Worf of not having sacrificed has really set him off. So I'm actually kind of curious now, what is it that Worf has sacrificed to be here? Because when we last saw him, in Deep Space Nine, he was supposed to become the ambassador to Kronos, but then we saw him in Nemesis, unfortunately, and he had gone back to Starfleet. So we really don't know what Worf has been up to the last 20 plus years. And I am kind of curious what he sacrificed, because to be honest, I really didn't think he sacrificed anything. What did he have to sacrifice? His wife, unfortunately, had died in Deep Space Nine. He had a son. Is Alexander okay? But whether he is or he isn't, it seems very unlikely it would have been Worf's decision for anything that might have happened to him. He just didn't seem like somebody who was in a position to have a lot to sacrifice. So let's see. Plus, he's supposed to live a lot longer than a human. I mean, yeah, if the other humans are getting up there in age at around 70 years old, but as a Klingon, if not dying in battle, Worf should live to like 200 years old. all the other Klingons, Kang, Kor, Koloth, they were all still alive from the TOS era right through the DS9 era. So Worf is barely middle-aged. I don't even think he is middle-aged as Klingons go. So Worf brings up on the system, what looks like blueprints, and he says that, need I remind you, this is for our benefit, the Daystrom Institute is protected with an advanced AI system. It's impossible to penetrate without authorization. And yet, we kind of have proof that it isn't because, stuff was already stolen. So you're going to say, well, obviously somebody had authorization to steal it. Well, fine. Then you just have to give yourself authorization. So you still have a way to break in. You're just pushing the, passing the baton or pushing the buck, whatever. This is one level higher. So to break in, you've got to give yourself permission to break in. You're still breaking in. Oh my God. So they go through this that nobody can break in. And then Raffi's like, well, then how did a bunch of, and she doesn't call them shapeshifters. She uses some other word that's from District 6 managed to do it. Like all these shapeshifters actually lived in the fucking ghetto district of Matalas Prime that she was stationed. And then they actually come up and they say, oh, if only Sneed could have told us. That was the Ferengi who Worf cut off his head. And then Raffi yells at them, too bad you cut off his head. And this was one of the problems we had. I said this, 2 episodes ago, 3 episodes ago. Why would you cut off his head? Why did you kill the guy? You should have taken to interrogate him. And people were like, well, he, obviously if Worf killed him, he had no knowledge. He didn't have anything left to tell. Well, here we are 2 or 3 episodes later. And I was like, yep, I was right. You should have kept Sneed alive. Would have been nice. Would have been nice to know what he knows. So Raffi asks Worf, well, who else? Who else would be in Sneed's orbit? And of course, Worf was like, oh, I think I may know of someone. He brings up a database list, and you got L'Rell of Rania, Sneed of Ferenginar, Toluco of Romulus. Romulus doesn't exist anymore, but okay. Then it's not those people. And then he scrolls down a little, and we get Morn of Luria, Krin, Brunt of Ferenginar, and Thadian Okona of Omega. So a whole bunch of member berries. Why is Morn? I guess because Morn technically was a criminal, right? Morn was part of the Lesepian bank heist. So I guess he's on the list of the most wanted or biggest criminals. I don't know. Brunt of Ferenginar, or what he decided to become a criminal. I mean, last we heard he was a liquidator, but maybe after Rom became Negus, he became a criminal. So of course he looks in at the list, and he clicks on Krin, and the name is Krin. He's kingpin of the Lashari crime syndicate. But this is, what is this? The year 2502, and they click on Krin. He's an unknown species, unknown birth, unknown everything, height unknown, weight unknown, sex unknown, eyes unknown, hair unknown, known associates, Sneed of Ferenginar, and wanted for charges of grand larceny and escaping from prison, suspected to be hiding somewhere in District 6, Matalas Prime, warrants pending. So everything goes back to Matalas Prime. And of course, there's no image on file. So they have no idea what this guy looks like, and they don't even know it's a guy, to be fair. I mean, the name is Krin. I guess it could be a woman. They have no idea what he looks like, but they know he's a bad guy. Worf says he specializes in high security infiltration, which is very lucky for them because obviously that's exactly who they need to break into Daystrom. He's also wanted for breaking and entering, murder, and a whole bunch of other things. So now they're back on District 6, and everybody's running away. They're like, they're here, and all the streets clear. All the losers and drug dealers and addicts and petty criminals, they all run for the hills because Worf and Raffi are walking the streets. Okay, yesterday, literally they could stand there. Nobody even knew they were there. Today, the fact that the second they beam down, it's like somebody's yelling, immigration, and all the illegals scatter. Like everybody runs away because Worf and Raffi are walking the streets, and Worf says, "Congratulations, we are now the alphas of District 6." And Raffi's like, you know what? Sometimes work is fun. This is fucking cringe. None of this dialogue. This doesn't sound like Worf, and nobody's running from fucking Raffi. I'm sorry. Worf, yeah. Worf, they might be running from. Nobody's running away from Raffi. Raffi fucking would get herself killed. Raffi would be dead if not for Worf, which he reminds her a couple of times, by the way. Nobody worries about Raffi. She's not sending people running for the hills. Worf is. It's not we are the alphas, Worf. You're the alpha. And it's so fucking stupid. It's not how any of it fucking works. What the fuck? So Raffi takes her phaser, shoots it in the air. She shoots her phaser in the air like a cowboy would go into an old western town and shoot his gun in the air to get the attention of the town. You fucking idiot! You shoot your gun in the air because it's loud. It gets the attention of everybody. A phaser's not loud. Nobody would fucking notice that you shot your phaser in the air unless they happen to be looking at you. She walks through the town, she shoots her phaser in the air, and she makes a proclamation. It's like, we're looking for Krin. Like, what? I think back to The Office, where Michael Scott has to declare bankruptcy, and he just says, "I declare bankruptcy," and what's his face? Is it Oscar or somebody's like, that's not how you declare bankruptcy. That's not how it works. Somebody should tell Raffi that that's not how it works. You don't beam down to Matalas Prime, shoot your gun in the air, and announce, "We're here for Krin." Hand him over, or else God knows what. But listen, I don't know. Is it going to work? And I'm 50-50 on this. Like, Worf should have just smacked her for being so fucking stupid. So Raffi yells out, "If you don't come out and tell us where Krin is, what happened to Sneed is going to happen to all of you." So basically she's threatening to kill everybody in the entire fucking district. She's going to kill everybody in the district. Obviously she's not. She's threatening, though, to kill everyone in the district if they don't turn over this one guy. And then Worf just decides to literally go on his knees and start meditating. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the ecology of District 6 to right itself." And Raffi ends the scene with, "We're going to need a backup plan." Well, yeah, maybe shooting your phaser off in the middle of the town square. "I'm going to kill you all if you don't hand over Krin" wasn't the best plan. And for the first time in this series, I was actually happy the Worf scene ended, because it was just It's just so fucking stupid. And we get the Titan out there in space and warps in another Starfleet ship. New design. I don't particularly recall seeing this design, but I'm going to go down and say this is one of the uglier ships in Starfleet. And it's the Intrepid. Intrepid is a good name. Unfortunately, one fugly ship. And the Intrepid tells the Titan to power down and await further instruction. So we already know something's not up. I mean, obviously, we all saw the previews. We know something is up. But even if we hadn't seen the previews, we would know something is very wrong. So despite the fact that we just heard the ship communicate with the Titan, on the bridge they're saying that the Titan has contacted it on a secure channel, and they're sending over a shuttle of security officers, and Shaw's like, a shuttle? Why not just use the transporter? And apparently they were insisting on a shuttle, and so they're all waiting. Picard, Shaw, I assume Riker's there, and they're waiting for the shuttle to arrive. And Picard tells Seven, I got to ask you for one more favor. And Seven's like, well, you better ask while you still have time, because they're all waiting there. They know they're going to be reprimanded. So Shaw, Picard, and Riker are all standing looking at the view screen for some reason, like the shuttle's going to come through the view screen. And Shaw is humming, like he's actually happy. He's like, oh, I can't wait for this all to be over. These guys will be out of my hair. And clearly he thinks he's going to be able to go on and move on from this. And Picard's like, do you mind? Like, could you shut up? You don't have to hum. Shaw's like, I just feel chipper. Not because you're going to have your asses handed to you. I just, chipper. So Riker says, don't worry. We have saved the galaxy more than a few times. And he's true. It's true. And Picard says, hopefully they'll remember that. And Shaw says, well, maybe they'll remember the time they dropped the saucer section of the Enterprise D on the planet. Or the time that somebody threw the Prime Directive out the window so they could bang a villager on the Baku planet. Or the times you nearly wiped out humanity by creating a time paradox in the Devron system. The Devron system? How does he even know about that? Did that ever actually even happen? Because it kind of all got undone. How would anybody know that happened? And would Picard file a report and say, yeah, I kind of wiped out humanity in the future, but then I undid it, and Q was involved. How does that even get reported? Does that go out to other captains? Like, yeah, there was this alternate timeline that briefly existed where everything was the same but different, and nothing is even close to similar to how it was, but it almost was. Yeah, you would have married Leah Brahm, by the way, Geordi, instead of whoever it was you did. What is... Oh my God, this is ridiculous. So Shaw is basically saying, you guys are more trouble than you're worth. So Shaw says, and now they're in they made their way into a turbo lift instead of staring at the view screen. And Shaw's like, when it comes to rescue, you guys have a real chicken and egg thing going. And that's where Picard tells to Riker, those were the days that we see in the trailer. Oh my God, it's Ensign Ro. Ensign Ro was the secret cameo. Although she's not an ensign anymore, she looks pissed. She looks pissed. Honestly, I didn't even recognize her. I didn't recognize her at first. Riker had to say, Ro Laren. I was like, oh, holy shit, it's Ensign Ro, it is. She comes on, she looks all angry. I was like, oh, there's the strong, powerful, angry woman walking down the hall with 2 security guards behind her. So Ro is in red command, and she's got a couple of security people with her. They said a shuttle full of security. I figured there'd be, more than 2. But maybe they're still on the shuttle. And so she eyes Captain Picard and Riker, and she asks Captain Shore for permission to come aboard. And what is Ro? Ro's got 3 pips. 3 pips. Can hardly even see the nose ridges. So then we cut away, and Seven finds Jack and ushers him away. And Jack's like, where are we going? And Seven's like, somewhere they can't find you. So I guess Picard's favor was to hide his son. How are they not going to find him? And if they can't find him, isn't that going to just raise more questions? How does he expect to hide his son? I don't know. So Ro basically reads Picard and Riker their Miranda rights. She's like, Starfleet wants you guys to submit for questioning, but I need to inform you anything you say can be used against you if Starfleet decides to press charges. And Riker's like, charges for what? And of course, she says, treason. And of course, everybody looks perplexed. So Seven brings Jack to just an empty room and gives him a duffel bag and says, put this on. And he looks in the duffel bag, and we can't see what's in the duffel bag. And Jack's like, no, I can't do it. So obviously it's a Starfleet uniform, which is what he was wearing when he killed the bridge crew at the beginning of this episode, which was only about 14 minutes ago. And then Seven just walks. She's like, no, the best place to hide you is in plain sight. And then she just walks out. So even after saying that it's standard practice for everybody to walk through like body imaging and whatever, you think you can hide somebody just by putting them in a uniform, as if there's not some way of verifying their identity as a Starfleet officer, as you know. The system that should be able to say, hey, we got somebody pretending to be a Starfleet officer. We've got an imposter on section 4, level 2. That should just be automatic, but whatever. She's going to give him a uniform, and I guess they honestly think that has a chance of working. Now we go to sick bay, and Beverly is doing an autopsy. And she says, for the record, the subject is a suspected shapeshifter. Like, they're not even sure. And then they have the real Sidney LaForge there. And Beverly's like, for the record, Ensign LaForge, can you verify that this indeed is not you? And like, she's looking at herself as a dead body on the table. Again, shapeshifters wouldn't hold the shape of their last, wouldn't hold the shape of the last person they were when they were dead. So we've got poor Sidney LaForge looking at herself as a dead body. And Beverly is putting her through this traumatic experience of making her verify that it isn't really her. And Beverly is, of course, leading this with the other doctor. I don't know if she's the chief medical officer or just the one other doctor we ever saw on the ship next to her. Because, of course, she is. She's going to just let Beverly take over her sick bay. So Ensign LaForge literally throws up. In case we weren't sure, they made sure we hear the liquid coming out of her mouth hitting the floor. They don't show it, but we hear it. She literally vomits on the floor of sick bay where they're about to perform a autopsy. I guess one of the robots will clean it up. Okay. They acknowledged it. At least Beverly says, typically upon death, changelings revert to their liquid state. Somehow this retained its last replicated form. So they know it didn't work like a regular changeling. So then why are you assuming it's still a changeling? Okay. So Beverly says, this is weird, so I'm going to start with the epidermis, which is obviously the skin. So she uses her laser scalpel to start cutting along the wrist, long ways, and a whole bunch of blood. Not a ton of blood, but clearly blood is coming out. And she's like, oh, very curious. She's like, this, no DNA whatsoever, but it's full of blood. This changeling could pass through traditional blood test. Of course it could pass the blood test. Joseph Sisko told us how shapeshifters could pass the blood test way back in Deep Space Nine. He said, if I was a really smart changeling, I'd kill somebody, suck up all their blood, and then, give it out on demand whenever one of you vampires come for a goddamn blood test. Okay, we knew this back in Deep Space Nine. I assumed that the body that fell out of the closet that Seven found on last episode would have been drained of blood. Maybe if somebody had done a goddamn autopsy on that guy, you would have known this changeling had blood on him. That's just my guess. That's my guess. And of course, for some reason, although she's absolutely not needed anymore, Ensign LaForge is still there. So of course, Ensign LaForge just asks, oh, what does that mean? And they don't know yet. It's easy what it means. It means that he sucked up all the guy's blood. So then we switch, and we've got Riker and Picard in the ready room talking, and Picard is like to Riker, how the hell is Ro Laren back in Starfleet? She should be in prison for what she did. And that's right, I'm sorry to think, 30 years ago, right, Ro didn't leave on good terms. She joined the Maquis. She was like, she was nice. She told Riker to give Picard my best. I really thank him for the opportunity and whatnot. But she did betray him. She betrayed them. And she let Riker go because she always liked Riker. Remember that. Ro had the hots for Riker. Now it's a little weird being he's clearly so much older than her. So Riker's like, that was 30 years ago, Jean-Luc. A lot of things can happen. And I'm thinking, you yourself was just trying to bring your son into Starfleet. Why is there no room for Ro? Probably there shouldn't be, but you have to bring a fan favorite back. That's the whole point of this season. Riker says that was 30 years ago. The Maquis are no longer an enemy of the Federation. The Maquis shouldn't exist. And Picard's like, she had an obligation to protect the Federation from terrorists, and instead she became one. And Riker's trying to talk him down. Jean-Luc, the last time you saw her, she pulled a phaser on you, she said. And Riker's like, you're the one who sent her to infiltrate an enemy she was going to empathize with. It's your fault. It's your fault Ro became a terrorist. Good job, Riker. That's sarcasm, by the way, in case it doesn't come through. It's early. So Picard is really pissed that she betrayed a commanding officer. And now how dare she's the one to accuse us of treason. So Ro comes in while they're arguing. And she's like, most of the crew of the Titan is going to be brought over to the Intrepid for reassignment. the whole of the Titan is on security review. And Riker's like, you're coming in here with this demeanor like our guilt's already been determined. And Ro's like, well, your cooperation can weigh heavily on your sentence. Like, so basically she's saying, you're already, yes, you're guilty. It's just going to be how badly your sentence is, if you cooperate or not. And Riker's like, what are you talking about? We have a history. Why, like, us. And she's like, for the rest of this time, you can address me as Commander instead of Ro. She doesn't want to be called Ro. And she's like, I'm going to question you guys separately, and I'll start with Admiral Picard. So obviously we're like, is this really the Ro Laren that we knew? Is she the imposter? They're certainly giving us the hint that she's the imposter. We'll see. She tells her security guys to escort Captain Riker out, and Riker's like, I'll go. You don't have to escort me out. So they leave. Picard takes a seat, and he's going to face down Ro, who he really does not like. For 30 years, he's been waiting to find her again to tell her how much he hates her. But he didn't know all this time. She was in Starfleet. She must have been in Starfleet for years and years and years. And this guy who hated her, who was an admiral in Starfleet, who you think could have blocked her acceptance into Starfleet if he wanted, didn't even know she was in Starfleet, let alone moving up the ranks. How is this a surprise to him? Bad writing, that's how. Picard asks her flat out, how does a lieutenant who betrayed the Federation and her commanding officer get reinstated? And Ro just ignores the question and says, did you or did you not board the Titan under the guise of conducting an official inspection? So she's not having any of it. She just answer the questions. Oh my God. Okay, so Picard says, how does somebody, who betrayed him, betrayed the Federation, stand here posing? And she's like, posing? Yeah, I heard you had a changeling problem. She's like, let's get this out of the way. She pulls a knife out of her boot. And cuts her hand like a fucking Klingon. She's doing the blood test like Martok would have. She slices her palm and she drips some blood out. She's like, and Picard's like, blood or no blood? Beverly found out, oh my God, the shapeshifters figured out how to pass blood tests. We knew the blood tests were bunk. Even back in Deep Space Nine, we knew the shapeshifters knew how to pass the blood test. Why is anybody doing a fucking blood test? Uh-oh. Picard realizes she's not wearing her Bajoran earring. So Picard is questioning Ro about why she would turn her back on her faith, which is way out of character for him. And now Ro is like, hey, this isn't all about you. Let's talk about your son. Dun, dun, dun. There it is. So Jack is in his quarters, hunched over in a Starfleet uniform, hearing the voices of his mother saying, find me, connect us. He's like hunched over, like he's scared, very scared of what's about to do. And now he's walking through the ship, and he's walking up to the transporter pad, and a whole bunch of people got on the transporter, and they got beamed. They're getting beamed away, and he can see them. He can see that red vine. You can see that red vine on them. And now the guy comes out, the transporter chief, says, were you ordered to beam onto the Intrepid yet? And he's like, no, I'm not here to beam on the Intrepid. I'm not beaming anywhere. You got to get me out of here. Anywhere as long as it's far away from Starfleet. And the transporter chief is like, no. And Jack takes out a phaser and shoots him in the chest. And then we say, okay, that was a dream. That really the transporter chief is there. And he says, are you all right? And Jack just backs off and walks away. And of course, the transporter chief doesn't apparently tell this to anybody. Just lets him walk away. Like, does he not know that that was Jack Crusher? Probably. I guess he doesn't realize. He's just one of the many crew members he's never seen before. And now we're back to Matalas Prime, the most important planet in the entire Federation. So Worf and Raffi are just standing in the middle of an empty street there on Matalas Prime. Actually, Worf is kneeling. And then all of a sudden we see a green dot on Worf, like a laser sight of a gun. And Raffi's like, oh my God, Worf. And then we see a green dot on her, like 25th century weapons or whatever are still using green dots. You wouldn't need a green laser sight on a futuristic gun. The sight would be on the gun and you would just see what you were aimed at. You wouldn't have to throw a point and let your target know they were being targeted. But whatever. Anyway, we get the reveal, I assume, of Krin, and it turns out he's a Vulcan. He's a Vulcan. And his henchmen appear to be Vulcans as well. So we'll see what his story is. So he had a Vulcan master who taught him about pride once. And the natural evolution of pride is downfall. And Raffi and Worf are standing there with the green dots right at their chests. So at any moment, they could be killed. So this Vulcan criminal mastermind, wanted for murder and all kinds of charges throughout the galaxy, whose picture conveniently wasn't on file, is a Vulcan with a tattoo on half his face. And he's wearing a goddamn idic. He's wearing an idic. If this is not the perversion, this one picture, this one screen grab of a Vulcan criminal terrorist mastermind wearing a goddamn idic, if this is not the perversion of all things Trek, if this is not the perversion of Gene Roddenberry's vision, I don't know what else there is. Like literally, if the guy pulled the idic off of his neck, threw it on the street, plopped out his dick and pissed on it, it would be only equally as bad as what we're seeing. That would be the same fuck you to Gene Roddenberry as what we're getting right now. So Krin tells him that, listen, you killed Sneed right out in public. I mean, it was inside his bar, but, or it was actually inside Raffi's ex's bar, but whatever, close enough. He's like, and now you guys walked right into a trap. And Worf is like, Worf and Raffi are standing there. There's at least, I don't know, 6 or so people with guns aimed at them. And Worf is like, you guys will yield your weapons. I assure you, we have the upper hand. And Krin smiles. Vulcan smiles and walks away. So Krin turns around and shoots Raffi with a phaser, and she evaporates. And then something falls off her shoulder, and now he goes to Worf, and he says, were you under the impression I would not recognize a mobile emitter. So Raffi was a hologram the entire time. Maybe they're both holograms, but I guess he's telling us only Raffi was the hologram. So now we see somebody with one of those futuristic guns, I assume, targeting Krin. I assume now that that's Raffi. And sure enough, it was Raffi, but one of Krin's guys comes up behind Raffi with their own gun and basically like, yeah, turn around. We got the jump on you. And Krin is telling Worf, it would be illogical to not prepare for you to try to trap me. So, of course, I trapped you. So we're back in sickbay, and they're doing the autopsy. And Beverly is like, so somehow these changelings have been able to replicate internal human organs. And it's only under intense dissection, whatever the fuck that means, that they revert to their natural state. So then we see a bunch of organs on the table that are still organs, but then when she cuts the organs, then the organs melt. Oh my God. The science breaks my head. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Star Trek once again proves they don't understand what evolution is. The doctor, I believe the chief medical officer of the Titan, asks Dr. Crusher, is this a new species? Like a new species of changeling? And Beverly says, no. She's like, it's evolution. It means they could be anywhere or anyone. What the fuck are you talking about? That's exactly what changelings could have always been. These are what changelings were in Deep Space Nine. They could be anywhere or anyone. Anywhere or anyone. They didn't need to evolve for that. You didn't create this, Terry Matalas. You son of a fucking bitch. I'm sorry, I was being nice. You're just ripping off Deep Space Nine and trying to say you created it. No. Shapeshifters could always be anyone or anything. That's why they were so fucking dangerous. They don't have to evolve. Evolution implies that there's something that improves their chances of survival. Okay, their survival. To evolve into a creature that dies differently, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. God damn it. So Beverly buzzes in with Picard, who's in the middle of talking with Commander Ro. Commander's Ro like, tell me about your son. Picard's like, what does he have to do with any of this? He's like, tell me about your son. And he's like, I can't do it. I only known him a few days. And then Beverly buzzes in, and Picard's like, I'm in the middle of questioning with Commander Ro. And she's like, I understand, but I have your test results. You should look at them right away. And so Picard realizes something's the matter. And he says to Ro, excuse me, I've got to take this. It's a private medical issue. And he walks over to a view screen or a computer. It's maybe, I don't know, 10 feet away from Ro. Ro is watching him, looking exactly what he's doing. And he brings up a screen. And on the screen, which I guess he's in front of, but it's in big text, it says, changelings can pass blood tests now. Trust no one. Which is what she told him the first time. She said, trust no one. Of course, he trusted everybody. So now she's saying, trust no one again. But now that he knows changelings can pass the blood test, he's going to realize, I bet Ro is a changeling. So Picard is pretty damn confident now. Ro is a shapeshifter. And she's asking about his son. And he's like, the Ro I know would have asked about the Vatic or the Shrike. Why isn't you haven't asked any questions about that? And then he's like, okay, why don't you tell me, how did you make your way, claw your way back into Starfleet? So Ro says that, well, she was a Maquis. She turned herself into Starfleet. I'm thinking, why would she do that? And if she did do that, wouldn't Picard at the time have known that she turned herself into Starfleet? Wouldn't that have made some kind of news? Because remember, the Maquis were all killed during the Dominion War. She should have been killed. That's what happened to the Maquis. Any of the Maquis that were still around were killed during the Dominion War when the founders, when Cardassia joined the Dominion, the first thing they did was wipe out the Maquis. So she should be dead. But she said, okay, she turned herself into Starfleet, and they put her back in prison. But then she got recruited by Starfleet intelligence because of her work with terrorist organizations, and they put her through some type of training or whatever, and she worked her way up slowly again through Starfleet intelligence to get back in. So after a little back and forth from Picard, Ro decides she wants to know about the shapeshifter. Tell me everything you know about it. Picard's like, I don't know anything. We killed it. So then Ro's like, well, I want to see its remains. And they walk out of the room, and we go to a different scene. So we see security officers walking down the hall. They've got pictures of Jack Crusher. It says arrest records of Jack Crusher, and they've got mug shots, and they're looking around to see if they see him. And there's a noise, a voice on the PA system saying non-essential crew should continue to beam over to the Intrepid. Picard is telling Ro, we switch back to Picard and Ro. Picard's in front, saying we should tell sickbay we're on their way. And Ro's like, change of plans, Admiral. Dun, dun, dun. So at phaser point, Ro demands Captain Picard step into the holodeck. That's a bit kinky. Oh my God. So they go into the holodeck, and for some reason, 10 Forward is still playing. It's empty. No one else is on the holodeck. Picard just naturally walks behind the bar and asks Ro, what will it be? Bajoran spring wine. And he bends down, and behind the bar, there happens to be a computer interface for the holodeck, and he just casually touches the button to turn off the safety protocols. The safety protocols just take a tiny little finger press. No confirmation screen, no voice authorization. To turn off the safety protocols, you used to need it to be like the chief engineer of the ship or higher. You used to have to go through all the security protocols. Now, if you grab for a drink behind the bar, you might accidentally turn off the safety protocols. Holy shit. So it's funny, the holodeck says that the program running is 10 Forward from the year 2024. So does that mean the entire series, even at the beginning of the series, when Riker and Picard were, talking for the first time, that was also a holodeck? I guess so. It doesn't make a lot of sense because we saw all of Los Angeles. We saw all of future Los Angeles, the buildings and whatnot. And now we're saying that this was just a holodeck recreation. Whatever, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's far more ridiculous is the fact that you can turn off the safety protocols with the accidental touch of a touch screen. So anyway, I'm starting to get the vibes that actually Ro is not a shapeshifter. She thinks Picard is the shapeshifter. Because they go on the holodeck and Ro is like, the walls on this ship are a little thin. Does this place have music? And Picard tells the computer to put on music, which turns on a jukebox. A jukebox. Ro's still holding the phaser at him. She says, hands above the bar. And he raises his hands, holding 2 drinks. He says, of course. And then Picard pulls out a phaser, and he's like, Guinan's phaser. You do remember Guinan. So now they're both got the phasers pointed at each other. And this is where they're going to figure out who's really the shapeshifter. My guess at this point is neither of them. So Ro and Picard have this discussion, and it's bullshit revisionist history about how Ro feels Picard betrayed her. Picard betrayed her. And she goes on this tirade about how hard it was to live under Picard's judgment. It's so much fucking bullshit. This is like seasons 1 and 2 all over again. They're blaming Picard. Picard was a fucking saint compared to Ro. Okay, Picard gave her every fucking chance. And she's still a self-entitled bitch. Fuck you, Ro. I do think it's the real you. But you had no fucking business saying this to Picard. So once they realize how emotional they both get, they realize that they can at least believe the other one is who they say they are. And so Picard's like, well, Ro, why are you really here? And we get the big reveal. Starfleet is compromised at the highest level. And she says to Jean-Luc, do you trust me? And of course, Picard says yes, he trusts her. So Worf and Raffi have been gathered together now. And whatever his face, Krin, is saying, do you remember this place? This is where you put Sneed's head. And he's like, not a kind fate for my brother. And Worf says, but Sneed's a Ferengi. You're a Vulcan. He can't be your brother. And he's like, well, not by birth, but we grew up together. I guess on the slums of Ferenginar, this poor Vulcan child. I don't know. Oh, they both grew up in the slums of District 7. So they were on Matalas Prime. In his world, loyalty passes for family. They had a blood oath. And Raffi whispers under her breath, good job to Worf. Like it's his fault. It's his fault for killing Sneed. To save her. To save her. Had she stood down when she was told to, this wouldn't be a fucking problem. So Krin is telling him that you guys know what's coming next, meaning death. And Worf uncharacteristically yells out, where was Starfleet intelligence? And like it's some sort of excuse. He's like, Sneed killed hundreds of innocent people. And Krin is like, yeah, I know. And I know. I worked with the Changelings. And, good. He's like, I'm sure Starfleet intelligence knows all this. And he starts clapping. And Raffi says, I never thought a Vulcan would be dumb enough to be a gangster. And Krin is like, well, there can be no utopia without crime. There can be no utopia without crime. And therefore, an organized criminal enterprise is logical. Those Vulcans and their logic. So they give Raffi and Worf a knife and want them to fight to the death. Krin says, some of my associates have wagered the Klingon will kill the human within 30 seconds. Some say the other way around. So begin. Raffi and Worf look at him and like, we're not going to fight. And he's like, well, if you don't fight, you both die in 60 seconds. And I'm thinking, we just saw Worf throw the knife so hard he puts a goddamn hole in the floor of the metal spaceship. Obviously, he's going to use the knife to kill someone. So Worf picks up the knife and gives this speech about how he also sacrificed for this mission and tells Raffi not to hold back because he cannot. So then they actually do start fighting. Obviously, this is all just for the entertainment of Krin. And by the way, Worf gets almost right up to Krin. Like, somebody should have shot Worf. Worf, with the knife, is within a few feet of Krin. I was ready for him to just throw it right to Krin's head. But of course, they need Krin alive. So that's what's going to be tough. So they're fighting, and obviously they're going to use their momentarily, everybody's going to be watching the fight closely. So they'll use that moment to, I guess, kill his guards, and then I assume take Krin, but we'll see. So Raffi ends up getting the best of Worf, stabbing him. And Worf, she's like, I'm so sorry, Worf. He's like, don't be. Today was a good day to die. And this is a worthy death. And he falls over. And we're supposed to believe Worf is dead. But not for a second. Not for a second do I actually believe she killed Worf. They're going to be like, oh, good thing Klingons have 2 fucking livers or whatever. And he's going to pop right back up in a minute, I'm sure. He looks at Krin with hatred, and then we go back to the Titan. So Ro and Picard are talking in the holodeck, and she's like, I think the changelings have infiltrated every sphere of Starfleet, including all key personnel. And Picard's like, how is that possible? And I'm thinking, it happened in Conspiracy. It happened already. It's happened before. It's probably a pretty easy thing to do. Frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do more of it during the Dominion War. So Ro is telling Picard that something's coming up, something to do with Frontier Day. And he's like, oh, that's Starfleet's anniversary. She's like, yeah, and all our entire fleet is going to be on display. And Picard's like, well, that's not evidence of a conspiracy. She's like, no, you don't understand. The Titan's not the only ship with a changeling problem. There's been 12 incidents across multiple ships, and it's all being kept quiet. She's like, and Frontier Day security is classified. Even she doesn't have access. So Picard asks, but what does all this have to do with Jack? And she's like, I don't know. It's just that Starfleet really wants him. And it's not the first time she's heard his name amongst intelligence chatter. And a few days ago, changelings, this is what Ro is telling Picard, changelings destroyed a recruitment center, a Starfleet recruitment center, with a portal weapon. And Picard's like, oh, the same used by Vadic. Yep, that same type. So Picard says, okay, now we've got something. Let's take this to Admiral Janeway. Ro's like, I've tried. Picard's like, well, he can try because he's still got sway. And she's like, only if you can get past their gatekeepers. She was denied access at every turn. She even went to the media. Okay, so now it turns out, now we know who Worf's handler is. It's Ro. Ro says the only thing she has is a pair of intelligent assets on the ground, and they've been busy gathering intelligence. So Ro is the connection to Worf and Raffi. Then we go back to Matalas Prime, and Krin is saying, oh, most unexpected for Raffi to kill Worf. But he wisely suggests one of his henchmen check Worf, because obviously this looks like a trap. And the henchman puts his finger on Worf's neck. There's no pulse, so he shakes his head. Nope, he's dead all right. Krin says, fascinating. His calculations had the Klingon prevailing 10-1. So Krin says the smell of Klingon blood makes him sick. Get rid of him. Well, if they were smart, they would just phaser him and vaporize him. But of course, we know we won't, because Worf isn't obviously dead. So Krin tells Raffi that she works for him now, and that he knows she's got a lot more to lose. She's got an ex-husband and a son, and probably grandkids and whatnot, so he's going to hold that all over her. Raffi says, "You'll never own me. I'll kill you first." Well, so what, you're going to let him kill your granddaughter? I think he does own you now. So the power goes out, and Krin starts looking around, and all of a sudden a couple people die. You can hear the knife, and the Klingon music plays, and Worf is back with the knife to Krin's neck and says, "Klingons never disappoint." Okay, so the cockamamie story of how Worf survived this is Raffi's like, "How you doing, big guy? I hope I didn't go too deep." And Worf says, "I have lost a considerable amount of blood." And then Krin's like, "But you were dead." And Worf says, "Nope, I mastered the Kahless technique of regulating my heart rate to nearly imperceptible." And I'm like, oh my God, the Kahless technique? Do you even know who Kahless was? I mean, Kahless was not a fucking meditation master. He was a fucking warrior. He didn't practice playing dead. Klingons don't practice playing dead. That's not a fucking honorable thing to do. Kahless would fucking kill you where you stand for even suggesting that. Okay? Kahless took a lock of his hair and put it in fucking lava. And with his bare hands, he forged it into the fucking first Batleth. And he used it to kill the fucking tyrant Molar. He didn't fucking play dead like a fucking possum. You fucking fucks. Fucking destroying the goddamn lore of Klingons, of Worf, of Deep Space Nine, of shapeshifters, of everything that fucking Trek holds dear. Fuck you, Terry Matalas. Fuck you and the horse you rode in. And I hate you. I fucking hate you. Okay. I hate what you made making Star Trek. I don't hate you as a person because I'm above that sort of shit. But God damn it, I hate what you have done to Star Trek. And I hate that somehow you have fucking infected 3/4 of the fucking Trek watching population to somehow think you vastly improved Star Trek when you haven't. You haven't improved it at all. And I don't know what you put in their fucking drinks, all the other fucking channels that say this is great Trek, but this is the most dangerous, worst Trek I've seen, because you're going back to the shit I love. At least Star Trek Discovery didn't go back to the shit I love. You're going back to Deep Space Nine, and you're trying to change it. Fuck you. Keep away from my fucking Klingons. So, Worf is bleeding to death, and he's like, we got to start the interrogation. And Krin is like, well, I know you're not going to kill me. It wouldn't be logical. And Raffi's like, well, if you factor in that Worf is bleeding to death and that his patience is going to be quite limited. And he's like, well, as you know, the Daystrom Institute is guarded by an advanced AI, but there were some flaws that were quite illogical. And there's this device that you need. Without it, there's no way to break in. So Raffi's like, so you'll give us the device? And Krin is like, well, I guess that would be logical. So then we go back to the Titan. So Ro is saying that she's transferred most of the crew from the Titan to the Intrepid. It's actually as a favor. She's like, she's left a skeleton crew on the Titan. You need to take the ship and run, but also make sure everybody she's left is loyal. So Ro says she's going to go back to the Intrepid to buy him some time. And then her security guards find her and they're like, Commander, there you are. And she's like, give us a second. And her and Picard walk down a hallway. And she's like, all these years, I wished you could have looked into my heart and saw what I was doing. I thought was the right thing. And she hands Picard something into his hand. We can't see what it is at the moment, but obviously it's something, probably a way of contacting Worf is my guess, but we'll see. Ro's crying. She's like, all these years, I wish that you had known me and I had known you. And she says, goodbye, Admiral. And the security guard says, we were ordered to return with Jack Crusher. And Ro's like, well, we're leaving. That's an order. And Picard looks at his hand, and it was her Bajoran earring. She had it with her the whole time. But Picard goes to the bridge, and Shaw and Riker and Seven are all just hanging out. And Shaw's like, so that was the fastest court-martial I've ever seen. And Picard comes on the bridge and says, Captain Shaw, we don't have time. You've got to run. And everybody's like, run? What the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I don't have time to explain. It's all so much worse than we ever could have imagined. Starfleet's compromised. And I'm thinking, why do any of these people have reason to trust him? So Captain Shore wisely, like, I don't know what the hell this guy's saying. He calls over for security. And then Captain Riker belays that. But Captain Riker's not in command. How does he belay an order from somebody? You know, the captain of the ship is in command here. Why would Captain Riker be able to belay Captain Shore's orders on his own ship? So Picard is like, please, you must trust me. So Ro's shuttle heads over to the Intrepid, and they're getting ready to approach. And the two security officers that were with her, they put down a bomb and beam away. And Ro says, Commander to Intrepid, what's going on? They don't answer her. She goes over and she sees, oh shit, this is a bomb, which conveniently has a fairly long countdown, though we can't tell because it's in alien numbers. And the security guys, they beam onto the Titan and they turn, they're shapeshifters. They changed and they take the form of other Titan crew members. Ro hails the Titan. They says they know my security team was just beamed off. They put an explosive. They try to beam her off the shuttle, but there's a transport inhibitor. So they say, if you get closer to the ship, we might be able to beam you off. But instead, Ro looks at the bomb and says, I don't have time to disarm it. And she moves towards the Intrepid. She's going to go and fly herself into the nacelle of the Intrepid to give them a chance to get away. And she's like, I don't have a chance. She's like, I'm giving you what you gave me all these years ago, a fighting chance. And she starts crying again. She's like, I wish I could just see you. Or no, Picard says it. Picard says, I do see you. I see everything. And Picard begs for forgiveness. He's like, forgive me. It's only now I see how great you were. And she tears up, and then she flies the shuttle into the nacelle, presumably killing herself. And I thought it was going to destroy the entire ship, but all it does is take out the nacelle. And then, of course, the ship starts falling because, of course, everything falls in space. But then it gets its power back, and it orders the Titan to surrender, and it arms photon torpedoes. And they're like, why? Captain Shaw is like, excuse me, not Jack. Captain Shaw is like, why are they doing this? And the Riker's like, don't you see? They're going to blame us. They're framing us for what happened. So Captain Shore is realizing they really do need to leave. The Titan's power comes back on, and of course it comes back up as if they were in some type of gravity well that they were fighting, but of course they're not. So the Titan, even with one nacelle out, is still a pretty formidable ship. Excuse me, not the Titan. The Intrepid, with one nacelle out, is still a pretty formative ship. So Picard says, if we don't run, Ro will have died for nothing. Seven says, if we engage the Intrepid, we're engaging our own crew. That's where everybody was beamed to. Shaw is very reluctant to run because of the skeleton crew. But Picard's like, we've got to do it. We've got to do it, or Ro will have died for nothing. So Shaw calls for a red alert, says to LaForge to get out of here as soon as the engines come back online. And then he goes over the PA system and says, everybody to battle stations. And over the PA system, he says, Starfleet has been compromised. Emergency order. Non-essential personnel return to quarters. But it's a skeleton crew. Every person on the crew is essential. And emergency order 762 Alpha now in effect. Like, seriously, 762 Alpha? Are we supposed to believe that everyone in Starfleet knows what emergency order 762 Alpha is? I mean, is that compared to emergency order 761 or 762 Beta? I mean, just fucking give it a fucking name. So the changelings that beamed on board happen to come face to face with Jack Crusher, who's still in a Starfleet uniform. And they pull out a phaser, and I guess they're talking to their other changeling and saying, he's here, deck 10. So the changelings tell him, don't move. We're attaching a transport beacon to beam you away. And Jack Crusher looks down, and that red door that he's seen in his vision starts opening, and like something takes over, and he becomes like a fighting machine. And I'm thinking this seems a lot like when, from season 1, when Soji, or whatever her name was, realized she was a synth and her programming took over and she had to fight back. Or I think it was Soji. It might have been her sister. Whatever. The point is, to me, even though we're supposed to never have watched Picard before this, it really seems like Jack is a synth. I doubt it, but that's what they're bringing back. And it turns out Jack is just a fucking killing machine. He has what appears to be super strength, and he easily kills 4 shapeshifters. 4 shapeshifters he kills using both phasers and apparently blunt force. Like, I don't know how you can get a changeling in a headlock when they can just turn into goo and get right out of it. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. But there we got at least 4 more bodies for the body count, which, by the way, I'd say is much higher this season than last season. I mean, maybe on par with season 1. Probably easily on par with season 1. And now he looks down the hallway, and those vines are back, and the red doors at the end of the hallway. Then he closes his eyes, and it all goes away. Back on the bridge, the Intrepid is giving them one final warning, even though they've already completely turned around. And Shaw says, let's go. And of course, the Intrepid fires 2 photon torpedoes. And just as they're about to hit the Titan, they warp away. Riker says, they're coming for us. And Shaw says, yep, but who exactly? And Riker says, everyone. And again, we've got the 3 seats on the bridge. So we have Shaw in the captain's seat, Picard and Riker, all 3 of them on the bridge. And we see the Titan at high warp. No idea where they're going, but they're going somewhere. So back still on the Titan, but I guess a few minutes have passed. Captain Admiral Picard is sitting quietly alone at a desk somewhere in quiet contemplation of everything that's been going on. The door opens, somebody puts his arm on his shoulder, and they go, is it Beverly? No, it's Riker. Riker sits down and says, I'm sorry. I know what she meant to you, meaning Commander Ro. And Picard says, no, you don't. He says, I don't even think I know what she meant to me. And Riker's looking a bit perplexed. Says, she gave me this just before she, killed herself. Her Bajoran earring, says Riker. Picard says, I don't know why she gave it to me. Riker says, I know why. Look. Oh, it's old cool spycraft. It's a data chip. Her earring was actually a holographic emitter. And it's got a whole bunch of documents. And a good thing Riker knew what to do with it, because Picard would have just fucking put it up in his library as like, oh, Ensign Rose earring. But Riker knew right away. He just had to click on something, and all of a sudden, all these documents come out. And Riker is starting to go through this. He's like, what do we got? What are we looking at here? Picard's like, it's her entire investigation. Riker's like, she died for this. Look at it all. All the way up to Starfleet Command. Oh, and now she's getting an incoming transmission. Like, Jean-Luc, do you want to answer this? And it's going to be Worf. It's Worf. Holy shit. Picard's like, Mr. Worf. He's like, Admiral, Captain. This is unexpected. He's like, we're just as surprised to see you. He's like, wait, where's Commander Ro? So Worf knew it was Ro. Oh, they've got some bad news for you, Worf. So now we're in sick bay, and Captain Shore's like 4. And we see the bodies of the 4 changelings that Jack Crusher killed. And Captain Shore's like, 4? Nice shooting, kid. And all these changelings, by the way, when they died, they all kept their human form or alien form, whatever they were. I don't think they were all necessarily humans, but they all kept their shape after dying, just like the other ones. Beverly asks for a moment alone with Jack. Says, you can't hide from me, Jack. Your eyes sink back into your head. So Beverly says, Jack, I remember a time when you were little, you stopped sleeping because you were afraid of what you would see if you did sleep. Jack is looking at her like, maybe you should have told me this before. He says, nightmares? I don't remember having nightmares. Beverly remembers. She's like, and you got through it then, and you'll get through this too. I don't think she quite understands what he's seeing. So Beverly says, you're not okay. All this stress, meeting your father, these attempts on your life, I need to know. Like, well, you just said it. Like, you seem to know what's going on. What is it that you need to know? Mothers. And now, even Beverly is curious they was able to take down 4. And he's like, tell me, Jack, how did you know they were changelings? And the truth comes out, he didn't know they were changelings. He would have killed them all regardless. So Jack says, I didn't know they were changelings. I think there's something very wrong with me. And Beverly is like looking at him and basically nodding, like, yeah, I think there's something very wrong with you too, son. She doesn't say it, but that's what she's thinking. And that was the end of the episode. And oh my God. Okay. Episodes 1 and 3 were pretty good. 3 I thought was actually really good. Episodes 2 and 4 were not good at all. Okay, not that they weren't good. They were not Trek. They were bad. 1 and 3 were good, 3 being the best of them all. 2 and 4 were less good. So I thought, okay, maybe the odd number episodes would be the better episodes. So part of me thought, okay, this episode would be really good. And of course, the exact opposite. This is easily the worst episode of the season. And I don't understand how people say some people are arguing this is the best episode of the season. What, because Worf comes on screen? Because we get Ro for half an episode? I'm sorry. I miss Ro too. I don't miss her that much that she can take some terrible crap writing and make it great again. It's not. This is the weakest Trek writing we've seen all season. And nobody seems to care. Does nobody care that the shapeshifters already had all these abilities? That's not how evolution works? Starfleet's already been compromised like this before? None of this is new. None of this is new, but they pretend that it is. How did the changelings, oh my God, the changeling got past the goddamn scanning test. It never worked to begin with. Those scans would never have detected the changeling to begin with. Oh my fucking God. I honestly, I really dislike this episode with a passion. With a passion. Okay, we get one, perhaps, we had one interesting villain. The fact that the villain was a Vulcan, for a moment, I like that. But this Vulcan's got feelings. Is he what? Is he one of Cybok's disciples? I mean, that was what I'm getting. Was he one of Cybok's disciples? Because Vulcans shouldn't be, even if they're, I could understand a Vulcan crime lord. I really can. I could totally get a logical Vulcan crime lord. But they still have to be logical. They wouldn't be smiling. They wouldn't have emotion. Okay, Deep Space Nine did it better. Deep Space Nine had a Vulcan who was a member of the Maquis, and she was totally logical. I think she was the Maquis, but she was buying weapons from Quark. She was totally logical Vulcan. She did it much better than this guy, who's emotional Vulcan. It's weak. What's the point? What's the purpose of an emotional Vulcan? It goes against the entire point of having fucking pointed ears. Worf got stabbed. He practices the Kahless meditation technique. Fuck you. Fuck you, the Kahless meditation technique. Kahless didn't meditate. Kahless would fucking skin animals with his goddamn handmade batleth. He didn't meditate. He didn't fucking go on a fucking vegan quest. He would just fucking kill a targ and eat it goddamn raw. Meditation technique. Oh my God. He wasn't worried about slowing his heart down. Okay, Klingons, do you remember the story of the wedding, the beating of 2 Klingon hearts? When the 2 Klingon hearts started beating in sync, they made a thunderous sound that even the gods that created them, trembled in fear at the sound of 2 beating hearts. Okay? Fucking Kahless, he would find a way to make his heart beat faster, louder, stronger, so that people feared him. He wouldn't fucking sit there and try to slow his heart down so that he could pretend to be fucking dead, so that he could get a leg up on it. No. Kahless would be like, fuck you, bitch. Batleth to the fucking face. Rawr! I'm Kahless. And he'd stand at the top of the fucking mountain, raising his arms with his batleth in his hands and the blood and the guts of all those who opposed him dangling off him while he ate their fucking beating heart. And he wouldn't be fucking trying to meditate like a fucking monk. That's not Kahless. That's not Kahless. That's not Klingon. Fuck you, Terry Matalas. Ah! That's the fucking Klingon. This Star Trek is dead. I'm looking at it in the eyes, and I'm looking, and I'm gonna fucking scream. Ah! That's me telling the fucking underworld, hey, Stovacor, a fucking warrior is on its way to you. It died in battle. It died in battle with Alex Kurtzman, Paramount Plus. Today was a good day to die, said Worf. Fuck. You killed Worf. You killed Worf. Not with a fucking knife, but with a pen. Fuck. I'm not even going. What do I rate this? -billion out of 10. Okay. Realistically, I'm so annoyed. Maybe, I don't know. I don't even want to I don't even want to give this a fucking number. Fuck you. You know what? I rate this a fuck you out of 10. The one good line from History of the World Part 2. Fuck you out of 10.